The Arizona Signal Watcher DXing video blog, Episode 7, Trans-Pacific AM Broadcast Band Reception Example. Now, I've already talked about the Super Loop antenna and the AM broadcast band receiver that I put together with an rtl-sdr dongle and an up converter. And for this video, what I want to do is show you an example of what can be done with this kind of setup. And I'm showing this map of the world, and this is an azimuthal map, which means that great circle routes around the globe are straight lines. So this is centered on the United States. And the reason I bring this up is because in the western U.S., especially during certain times of the year, it can be relatively straightforward to pick up radio signals from across the Pacific Ocean from places like Japan and China and Korea. Now, those are very long distances, several thousand miles. But those transmitters are much stronger than AM radio transmitters we have in the United States, where the limit is 50 kilowatts. Many of those stations in Eastern Asia run at half a megawatt. Now, conversely, people out here on the East Coast can often pick up Europe. And one key is that the paths here to Eastern Asia are about 310, 320 degrees, so basically northwest. Over here the paths are basically northeast or north-northeast to get Europe. So even though we think of Japan, say, as being to the west of us, because it's at a similar latitude to the United States, when you look at the Great Circle route, that's not quite true. In any case, even with these large distances, those radio signals can make it to the United States. Typically, you get the best signals shortly before sunrise and a couple hours before sunrise at your location when it's still night in Japan. Also, typically the signals are best roughly around the two equinoxes. And so September and October tend to be pretty good. Also, March can be very good as well. So I'm going to show you an SDR recording from September 21st of 2016, so just a few months ago. And it's going to show what you can get on a pretty decent morning of trans-Pacific propagation. Alright, so this is also going to be an experiment in recording the computer screen live. So my voice will be coming in over the video that's recorded from the screen of my laptop. And for the sound for the radio stations, that's going to come from the laptop speakers, so the quality may not be quite as good as it could be, but hopefully it'll be good enough that you can get a flavor for what's going on here. So first of all, we have the entire AM broadcast band here from basically 530 kilohertz all the way up to 1700 kilohertz. And this picket fence here, you see every 10 kilohertz, those are North American stations, mostly from the US, but since I'm in Arizona, many of those stations are Mexican. And of course, on many of these frequencies, there are multiple signals trying to fight it out. I also get some signals from Canada as well. You can see the waterfall here that displays the signal strength as a function of time. This dip here around 1500, this is because I have a passive filter to knock down my local 1450 and 1490 kilohertz stations, and that was something I mentioned in my rtl-sdr based AM receiver video, and that's something that I can do to diminish my my two main local stations so that I don't risk overloading the rtl-sdr because it does have a limited dynamic range. Now, the reason why this trans-Pacific stuff works is because in Asia, their radio stations are on 9 kilohertz spacing, and that's the same thing with Europe. And so that's why this trans-Pacific and transatlantic reception can be so interesting, because you get stations in between your regular domestic stations. So first of all, what I want to show here are that on a decent night, not only will there be stations where you can get audio, but if you look carefully, you can see carriers from just about every 9 kilohertz frequency. And so right here, now 900 is blocked by domestic, 909, 918, 927, 936, 945, 954, 963, 972, 981. All of those are signals basically coming across the Pacific Ocean. Most of them are way too weak to produce audio, but the carrier is certainly there, and that's real. That is actually a station coming from across the Pacific. And again, on a night like this, on a decent night like this, they're basically all over the place. Again, you can see those here: 819, 828, 837. 846, 855, 864, 873, and so on. Now I'm going to start with the strongest signal. This is usually the strongest trans-Pacific signal, and this is on 774. This is JOUB out of Akita, Japan. This is an affiliate of NHK Radio 2. Now I'm adjusting the filter width here so I can block out some of the adjacent splatter from domestic stations. And what I'm going to do is this recording goes from 1238 to 1318 UT. Again, this is on September 21st, 2016. And so let me go to just right before the 13 UT top of the hour. So that's going to be about 21 minutes into this. We'll go a little bit earlier than that. Now you can see the signal is looking pretty good there. And let's go ahead and unsquelch the audio.
He has a very ladylike snore.
How true. You can say that again. I think that you're not still being very good spirit.
That's very true.
Well, they're doing better than I thought. Than I imagined. Because they can sleep so well, right? Sleep, that's important. Well, that's about it for today. So until next time, keep listening.
Keep practicing.
And keep on smiling. Bye.
So that's the end of the hour of English lessons on NHK2. And what we're going to hear in a moment is this is going to lead into the top of the hour pips that NHK2 uses. Those will come up here in a second after this little piano interlude. Okay, so that's 13 hours UT, or 6 a.m. local time here in Arizona. Now those annoying kind of noise crashes you're hearing, well, that is the splatter from adjacent domestic stations. 770, that is KKOB out of Albuquerque, which is a strong station. 780 here, this is probably, well, this could either be a semi-local station out of Sedona. I don't know whether they've powered up for the morning yet. They run low power at night. Either that or this is a station out of Las Vegas. But anyway, you could hear there that there was, clearly we're getting a station. It's a Japanese station. And in some sense, it's rather remarkable. This station's over 5,000 miles away. And yet when it's at its, the signal's coming through at its best, you can actually listen to the station. Now, this isn't as good as it could possibly be, but it's pretty good. Now, let's go over here next door. Now, this is 747 kilohertz JOIB out of Sapporo, Japan. This is also an NHK2 affiliate. And the peak signal I had for this was at about 12:53 UT, so that's about 15 minutes into this. Now this is not going to be as good a signal, and there's also going to be a lot of splatter from KCBS on 740 out of San Francisco. I'm pointing the antenna directly toward there to get toward Japan and East Asia, and KCBS puts out a really good, really strong signal, and they also put out a fairly wide signal, but you know, that's just what you have to deal with. So let me see what I can get here. So what did I say, 12:53. So that's going to be about here. Let me. Now that is the same ending of the English lessons that we heard on 774, and now here in a moment we're also going to hear the top of the owl pips, which are another good indicator of the station. The English lessons are very distinct because there's a very distinctive female voice and a very distinctive male voice and a very distinctive pattern going on there that makes it relatively easy to tell what's going on. And by now you can kind of get a sense of why I call this blog and the video blog here the Arizona Signal Watcher, because with an SDR, it's not just listening, you're also looking at these signals. And that's one of the cool things about the SDR. Not only can you record big swaths of spectrum to listen to later, you can also see kind of what's going on. Now let's go ahead and continue down here to 693. Now this is going to be troubled by splatter from 700 KALL out of Utah. What I'm going to do is I'll go down to a narrow filter, and I'm also going to offset the filter a little bit, and we'll see what we can get. Now this is another NHK2 affiliate, JOAB, out of Shobu. And at 12:46, there was a little bit of audio. Let's see if we can hear that. And if you listen closely there, you can hear that, especially that female voice. Again, this is still the English language lessons. Now, since we're down here at the low end, let's go to something really weak. Now, there's another Japanese station on 594 that sometimes comes in, but it wasn't doing very well this morning. It's an NHK affiliate, but not NHK2, so it's different content than what we've been hearing. But let's go to 558, and this is, let's see, I'm going to expand that out a little bit and then shift it, offset it a little bit. That's a trick you can do. And this is going to be at, again, 558, although I'm centered at 557. This is most likely a Korean station, and I'm going to advance ahead here to 1304 UT. That's going to be, sorry, 1307 UT. That's going to be about right here, about 29 minutes. Let's see what we can hear. Now there's a really interesting one here at 1053, and this involves a little bit of political intrigue. At 1053, South Korea has a jamming station, and they're trying to jam radio signals coming from over the border in North Korea. And so let's go to 1244 UT, and we'll be able to hear that. And what you're going to be listening for is this kind of sound. And once you start hearing it, it's fairly distinctive, and it seems to pretty much be there just about all the time. And let's see what we can hear of that. And you kind of hear that rhythmic jamming signal. Also some splatter from 1050. That's usually, that's very often Mexico. Let's pick up another, let's go over here for another Korean station. 972, this one's a little bit tricky because 970 is right there, and typically kind of blocks the signal a little bit. Let's see what we can get out of this, though. I'll move things a little off-center. That's another thing that's nice about the SDR software, is you can adjust your filter width to optimize the signal. And because it's an AM signal and there's a carrier, as long as they can pick up that carrier, you can be off-center and it'll still be able to demodulate the signal. That's what makes this different than, for instance, single sideband, which you might use on ham radio. For single sideband, if you go off-center, the sound just gets crazy because there's no carrier, and you have to use your internal frequency oscillator to get everything lined up because there's no carrier. So we'll just do this right now here and see what we get. Get a sense of how variable it is. And seeing here, that one was doing pretty well. And let's look at one more Korean station, South Korean station, 1566. Now this is HLAZ, and this is often a fairly strong station. It wasn't doing that great this particular morning, but it's at 1566. This is a Christian radio station. It's a mix of talk and music. And I want to go to 1241 UT. Now the other thing is, if you look right here, you see the noise level is down low, but if we look earlier, the background level jumps up. There was about 5 or more dB of noise going on early here, so that kind of interfered with what was the best signal coming out of this station, but we'll give a listen anyway. And so that's basically a quick tour of the kind of stations that one can get. And the great circle path between here and Eastern Asia actually travels over about 700 or 800 miles of land, and it doesn't exit the United States until Northern California. So that's quite a bit of overland travel in addition to the long ocean travel. If you're much closer to the coast, the west coast of the United States, you can do a lot better here. And this is a big hobby of AM AM broadcast band DXers up in the Pacific Northwest, locations in Washington and Oregon and British Columbia, close to the ocean, and also physically closer to Japan and China and Korea. They can do very well and can oftentimes get really good signals. This far inland is a little bit more of a treat, just getting any kind of audible signal. So this is not a hobby if you're this far inland, for getting great listenable signals. Now sometimes you do get that 774 out of Japan. I've had times where it can be listenable for tens of minutes, and you can listen to it almost like you'd listen to a local station. But usually these stations fade in and out, and a lot of the game is just trying to get any kind of audio at all. And if you've looked at my blog, you've seen and heard some of those signals that I can get anyway from here. And remember that this is using my rtl-sdr based receiver that I showed you in the previous video, and this is using a Conti Super Loop antenna like you've seen in my videos before. So I'm not using any revolutionary equipment here. It's relatively simple equipment. It's specialized equipment, but it's not like I'm spending thousands of dollars to receive these signals. It's something that if you want to try, that you can do at relatively low cost. And of course, once you have the rtl-sdr and the up converter, there's all kinds of other things you can do with that. You can do shortwave DXing and other stuff like that. Now I want to show you just one more thing just for the heck of it here. Again, because I'm not that far away from Mexico, I do get a lot of Mexican stations. And one thing they do, typically at midnight local time and around 6 a.m. local time, is that they, even though they're 24-hour stations, they sign on and sign off, so to speak, with the Mexican national anthem. So what I'd like to do is sign off, and hope you enjoyed this video. Radiorama Mexicali.